My dad shouted that outsiders don't belong on family trips, then stormed out, abandoning me like garbage. They explored Europe while I spent 15 years humiliated in a home that was rightfully mine. But the moment I discovered their hidden truth, I forced them to grovel and plead. Hey Reddit, I'm Elise, and I used to doubt people when they claimed some families are worse than foes. I thought they might be exaggerating or just going through tough times. But deep down, I was probably desperate to believe my own family wasn't as heartless as they proved to be. I grew up in a calm suburb, in what others might call a proper home. My father, Arthur, was a respected attorney in our community. My mother, Denise, was the ideal housewife, always with pearls, perfect dishes, and a chilling edge to her smile. Then there was my half-brother, Mason, the favored son. I call him half-brother now because that's what I later learned he was. Back then, I thought we were full siblings. To outsiders, our family seemed flawless. But inside our grand two-story colonial house, I was treated like an unwelcome intruder. No, worse, like a stray animal they grudgingly tolerated, but never cared for. I first noticed I was different at 8. My birthday passed without a single present, while Mason had a lavish party with a magician just weeks earlier. When I asked my mom why my birthday was ignored, she snapped icily, "Be thankful we even let you stay here." I wasn't clueless. By 10, I started questioning things. I didn't resemble Dad much, and he never showed me warmth, not even frustration, just cold detachment. It was like I was a nuisance in his space. If I spoke at dinner, his stare would silence me. Everything exploded when I was 14. We were planning a family trip to Europe, Rome, Paris, Barcelona. Dad had hyped it up for months. I was thrilled, thinking maybe I could finally feel included, not just a shadow. I packed my suitcase days in advance, chose books for the plane, and imagined seeing the Eiffel Tower glowing at night. On departure day, I came downstairs, dressed and ready, bag in hand. Mason lounged on the sofa, sunglasses on, looking like a catalog model. Mom glanced at me as if I'd wandered into the wrong house. "Why are you dressed?" she asked sharply. "I'm ready for the flight," I said, puzzled. "We're leaving at 10, right?" Dad, standing by the door with his luggage, turned so slowly my stomach churned. He stepped closer, glared, and yelled so loudly it shook me. "Illegitimate kids don't go on family trips." That word, illegitimate, hit like a blade. I stood there, trembling, trying to process it. He grabbed his suitcase and stormed out. Mom followed without a word or glance. Mason smirked and said, "Tough break, sis." Then he slammed the door. I stood there for hours, bag still in hand, hoping they'd come back, say it was a mistake, a cruel prank. They didn't. For 2 weeks, I was alone in that empty house while they posted joyful photos from Europe. Then, when I turned 18, thinking I could finally escape, life threw another curveball. A letter arrived from an unfamiliar lawyer, tied to my biological mother's name, a woman I barely knew. Dad had always said she was unstable, someone who ditched me. The letter told a different story. She owned the house we lived in, fully paid, legally hers. When she died, guardianship and temporary residency went to Dad, but the property? It was mine the moment I turned 18. I was floored. For years, they treated me like a burden, yet I owned the very home they made me feel worthless in. I kept it quiet, played ignorant, and observed. For 15 years, I stayed, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see how far they'd push. They had no clue the house was mine. They acted like I was mooching off their kingdom. Dad even mocked, "When are you moving out of my house, freeloader?" Meanwhile, they never contributed to upkeep. I worked to fix leaks, repaired the heater with my own money, and paid property taxes secretly through the trust my mom left. They were the leeches, and I was quietly collecting every legal paper, every receipt, every proof of my ownership. The turning point came when I went to the attic after a storm. A pile of papers had fallen from a decayed shelf. One envelope addressed to Arthur stood out, postmarked just before my mother's death. It was from a woman I didn't know. The letter inside chilled me. "Arthur, you swore she'd never find out, but now she's asking questions and I demand honesty. Elise isn't yours. She was born from your infidelity and I raised her to protect your image. But I won't stay quiet if you keep treating her like garbage. She's innocent and deserves a future." I dropped the letter. My mother knew I wasn't Arthur's biological child, yet she raised me, not warmly, but she didn't abandon me. Arthur wasn't just distant, he was despicable. He hated me not because I was illegitimate, but because I was evidence of his affair, his shame. Mason, not my full brother, just the prized child born to uphold the lie. It all made sense. I wasn't unloved because I was flawed. I was despised because I was the truth. That day, something shifted. Not in a loud, vengeful way, but quietly, with purpose. I became calculated, dangerous. They thought I was weak, but they had no idea what was coming. After finding that letter, I didn't rage or weep. I went downstairs, made tea, and opened my laptop. I'd spent my life waiting for someone to save me, a mother who never came back, a father who never claimed me, a family that saw me as a burden. Now I was the storm, and they were about to be swept away. I hired a lawyer, Margaret, sharp and composed. I showed her the deed, the trust, the attic letter. Her eyes widened as she reviewed the inheritance papers. "Elise," she said, "this house was never theirs. You've had full rights to it. They've been trespassing for years." We drafted an eviction notice but held off sending it. I wanted more. After their latest cruise, a celebration for Mason's new job, they planned a big backyard party. Guests included Dad's colleagues, Mason's tech buddies, even the mayor. That was my moment. I rarely attended their events. They preferred to act like I didn't exist, but this time I descended the stairs in the only designer dress I'd ever bought myself. Mason sneered. "You're not invited." I smiled. "I live here, don't I?" He smirked. "Not for long. Dad's talking to a realtor. This place will be gutted and sold by summer." The nerve. They planned to sell my house, the one my birth mother left me, the one I maintained while they partied and lived like kings. I waited until the garden was packed with guests, wine flowing, music soft. Then I stepped to the microphone Dad had set up for his big speech. I tapped it twice loudly. Everyone turned. "Hi, I'm Elise. Some of you know me, most probably don't. I'm Arthur's daughter." Murmurs spread. Dad's face went white. Mason froze, drink in hand. "I just want you to know this house legally belongs to me, has since I turned 18 left by my biological mother, the one Arthur lied about, the one he betrayed." I held up copies of the deed and trust. "This party, it's your last on my property. You have 30 minutes to leave or the police will handle it." Silence, then chaos. Dad charged toward me, face red, voice shaking. "You ungrateful," I cut him off calmly. "Touch me and I'll have you arrested for assault and trespassing. You never owned this house." Denise tried to speak, but I stopped her. "And you treated me like dirt. Do you even recall my birthdays?" "Because I remember Mason's, everyone, with cakes, gifts, love. And I remember being told I should be grateful to breathe your air." Tears formed in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Then came the best part. Margaret emerged from the crowd, dressed sharply, holding a thick folder. She handed court orders to Arthur and Denise. "Effective immediately, you are evicted from 384 Larkspur Lane. Remove all belongings within 48 hours under supervision." Dad looked stunned. Mason was speechless. They tried to beg. Arthur even touched my shoulder, something he hadn't done since I was little. "Sweetheart, we can work this out." I stared into his eyes and delivered the line I'd held for 15 years. "Illegitimate kids don't belong on family trips, right? Maybe they don't belong in family homes either." He dropped his hand. I walked inside, leaving them as whispers spread among the guests. The mayor slipped away quietly. Mason stormed off, humiliated. That night I slept soundly in my bedroom, not as the outcast or unwanted child, but as the rightful owner. The next day, movers packed their things under Margaret's and 2 officers' watch. Mason claimed the house was partly his and tried to gain online sympathy, posting about his cruel sister evicting the family. But I had proof, documents, records, screenshots of their mockery and neglect. Public opinion didn't favor him. A week later, I redecorated, painted the walls, replaced their furniture, and made the space mine. I donated their luxury items and sold the rest, using the money to start a small nonprofit for girls from broken homes. A year later, I began speaking about family betrayal and quiet resilience. I wrote a memoir that became a bestseller. Dad now rents a small condo. Mom vanished from public life. Mason, jobless after his viral drama, led his company to drop him to avoid bad press. Me, I found peace. They say revenge is sweet, but peace is sweeter. The real win wasn't their begging or groveling. It was knowing I'd never hear their voices again, and they'd always remember the day the outsider became the one in charge.